All right, I think now it should be working. I had some difficulties here getting stuff to set up, but I think we're looking good now. Perfect. Okay. Please let me know in the chat if you can hear me and if everything's working, then I know it's all good here. Just quickly checking it if everything is all right. Perfect. That's great to hear. All right. Then, yeah, welcome everybody. Pretty cool to have you here at the end of the year. Essentially, I think it's now getting a little bit too of a tradition here, essentially having a live stream towards the end of the year. Yeah, so I thought this year as well, why not have a cool live stream and just hang out a little bit? And I got the perfect topic here as well. So I think we are going to dive into a few measurements today, and I think it's going to be pretty funny. So let's check that out. And in the meantime, I'm just quickly checking here. So Be Creative, hello and welcome. Geeks Television, hello, and Valaka, also hello. Great to have you here. Now I think we can start. Let me quickly pull up my other screen. And I should also have the chat open, otherwise I can't see anything. All right. Good, I think we are ready for some tests here, or maybe just a few words before we start what we are even doing here. You might have read from the... let me go to full screen here. You might have read from the title itself. Today we're going to test a few things, maybe some vegetable stuff and for audio. If you haven't seen my last video, this was about carrots. And yeah, just routing audio through carrots, and it was quite funny. When I saw it at first, I didn't really believe that this would work out the way it did, but yeah, in the end, it actually was. I was quite surprised by how well audio is traveling through a carrot, essentially. And I think at the end, I kind of hinted at some other vegetables to be tested, and that there would be some other stuff out there that might even perform even better. So I have some stuff here today which I want to try with you together. So I thought this is a pretty interesting idea. And let me quickly follow up here with the chat before diving into the first measurements or the first measurement setup here. Are you planning on reviewing headphone amplifiers in the near future? Maybe. I'm not so sure, to be honest. I think depending on which audio interface you have, I think you probably don't need a headphone amplifier. I mean, some headphones are quite power hungry, then you definitely need one. And if you're just running from the PC to your headphones, then you might benefit from a headphone amplifier. But I think in many cases, headphone amplifiers are just not needed anymore because audio interfaces have become so powerful themselves. But yeah, I might try the one or two. I don't know, I've gotten already some requests for some specific ones. Maybe if I get around to that, I'll have a look. Hello from the Czech Republic. Hello back. Greetings everyone from Finland. Also, greetings back here. Great to have you here. Tried with broccoli. I think broccoli I don't have here right now, but we will have a few other things to test as well. And I also see Curtis here. Hi Curtis, great to have you here in the chat as well. Perfect. Then yeah, let me quickly show you what I'm trying to do here. And I will be or answering some questions in between. So if you have any questions, just put them into the chat. So Curtis has no idea why he's learning about audiophile veggies, but trust me, it's really good. Yeah, I also had to learn it the hard way, essentially, and was surprised by how well vegetables work for sending audio. It's pretty funny. All right, let me go to the other screen here and show you what I got. So essentially what I have is my audio analyzer running, and I have essentially set up a loopback measurement here. So you can see that from the analyzer itself. That's actually the camera on the bottom here. Let me go to full screen here. From the analyzer itself, we are going into the cables here, and we are running just essentially out of the analyzer through the RCA connection and then back in again. And when we have a sweep here, I have to confess I already set this up beforehand. So I just press go, just so we see. Let me just quickly get the right values here. So if we let this running, we will measure the frequency response of this loopback connection, and as you would expect, it's pretty much perfect. So it's just a straight through connection, so we will see a ruler flat frequency response here. But we are going to see what different kind of vegetables and whatever we have here today have an effect on audio itself, on frequency response, on distortion, and so on. And we're just getting a baseline here, essentially. So with this straight through connection, as expected, ruler flat, you can see the yellow line. That's pretty much as we would expect. So I will save this just so we have a reference for later. Not that there's anything really to reference to, it's just a flat line, but you know how it should ideally look like. And yeah, I think our first specimen is going to be, as I already hinted in my last video, is going to be a pickle. So let me grab a pickle here. And I have to see how I can show you this best. Go to the close-up here, I don't know. So I got some high-quality audiophile pickles, and without making a mess here, hopefully I can prepare some stuff. Let's see. So let's take the big one here. Okay, I think it's going to be a bit messy, but all for science, I guess. All right, there it is, our perfect audiophile pickle specimen. And let me go to the other view here again. So just have to clean my hands all the time because it's like juice everywhere. So let's have a look what the pickle does to the audio path. By the way, I also saw in between here in the chat somebody asked how Sennheiser is pronounced in Germany, and it's just Sennheiser. So it's a little bit, it's not Sennheiser, it's more Sennheiser, but that's how you say it. It's not so crazy. There are some other words or other companies like Neumann, Newman, or Neumann, which are much more difficult to pronounce. All right. I think not much blabbling about here. We're just directly going to insert the RCAs into the pickle, as we did with the carrot itself. So let's see how that goes. Quite sure how exactly I can push that in here. Actually, that's pretty weird. I'm not sure if this is working, to be honest. I think the carrot was much better in that aspect, that it could hold the plugs at least under their own weight. I think in the pickle here, they tend to fall out. Let me quickly try to get the... Okay, this is actually much more tricky than I thought. I thought we were going to push them in and measure the pickle as I have done with the carrot, but apparently that's not the case, because now we're also touching with the ground connections. But regardless, let's just give it a sweep, and in the meantime I can... let me have a look what happens. Yeah, I mean, you can see that there's like huge amounts of distortion, because we are essentially, by touching the middle of the RCA part and the outer part to the pickle, we're actually shorting the connection here, which I think is not so great for the measurement, but let's run it regardless. Torturing the audio analyzer a bit, but let's see. And in the meantime, I can have a look at the chat. Yeah, I think, some suggestion here, also banana. I think I don't have a banana here, but we have... Well, I have an apple here, and I will try an apple a little bit later. So we are going to try that out as well. And I might or might not have some other stuff, which some people have suggested, which is just pretty weird, but let's see how that goes. Yeah, so Curtis. So I can barely keep it to myself. Yeah, it is kind of gross, to be honest. Just pushing RCA plugs into a pickle is definitely an interesting thing to do. And actually not one of the things that I would have thought I would do in 2024, but there it goes. Let's see. Okay, I think we're not even get a proper signal here because we have so much signal drop. Let me try that again. That's not the right one. Let's try the sweep again here. But yeah, I think this is not really a valid measurement in my opinion, because we're essentially kind of shorting the ground connections. Yeah, so I think that already kind of answers the question, how good are pickles for audio connectors? I have to say, not that great. So I don't know, in total, right now I would give them a 3 out of 10. The carrots have worked much, much better. I don't know. You could just push in the plug itself with the middle part, so the signal wire, and it would stick very firmly, and it would not touch with the ground connections and anything. And yeah, I mean, as you can see, if I go to the close-up here, this is just barely holding on. And it's not really... It just doesn't want to stick. I don't know if we have a... but now the question is, what happens if we just touch it? So let's try this again. It's going to be interesting. I'm not sure how I can do this. I think I need 2 hands for this. I have to start it here probably, and then... let's just run the... Okay, that's pretty funny. If you see at the top we get 1.9 volts. So that's essentially a perfect connection. It's like nearly the same as touching just the RCA plugs together on their own, which is kind of funny. Okay, maybe I can hold it like this. You cannot see it, right? Let me just put that here and hit go. So we're just touching the pickle here. Let's see. Oh, and I totally forgot to change the scale. Okay. Now we're getting some useful data out of this pickle. But I have to hold it very still here, otherwise things will move. But I think it actually looks pretty good if you look at it. I mean, there's some roll-off in the lower frequencies. But otherwise, I mean, right now it's ruler flat. To be honest, this is probably also what I would have expected because of the high like water and stuff content here. Let's give that a... So pickle... How do we call this? Pickle, I don't know, proper. And the other one we turn off. I mean, look at the measurement here. That's pretty funny. Just turning up the signal itself. You can see that, yeah, we have some slight drop-off in the low frequencies, but otherwise, I mean, this is ruler flat. So actually, I think if you were able to kind of fixate the XLR plugs into the pickle without touching the ground wires, you might actually not hear a huge difference. The question is now, let me turn on the signal again in terms of distortion. So let me just touch the pickle here. And you can see, I mean, oops, now I moved again. But I mean, you can see that, let me get the signal right. On the scale, we are at like minus 110, minus 120 decibels for the distortion component. So that's actually pretty much like the limit of the audio analyzer here. So I don't know. I mean, purely from an audio perspective, I would say that the pickle is actually pretty good in terms of sending audio. I just have one more question now. What happens if we go through more pickle, essentially? So let me just turn this around. Just push this end to end. And yes, this is as weird as it looks. But let's see if we can get a useful signal here. Okay, so I'm now connected without touching the ground of the RCA plug. And that is pretty incredible. I think we have to do a comparison in a second with like the straight through connection, but this is pretty much as close as it gets. Let me just run the sweep here. I think because I made an even better connection now, the response is actually even better than before. So maybe if you use a pickle for an audio adapter, you have to use it end to end because it, I don't know, connects better. I'm not sure. That's a very interesting finding, to be honest. Yeah, and naughty bits. 38 watching and only 9 upvotes. Exactly. You have to upvote here a little bit for science. Trust me, it smells so much like pickle in here. It's pretty crazy now. I don't know, I have to get some air into this room a little later. It smells like food. So more pickle equals less distortion, yeah. Yeah, interestingly, it seems to be the case. I think it is because of the better connection now. When I pushed it in, like on the tips, so at the ends of the pickle here, actually the pickle is a bit firmer than in the middle, and because of that, I have the feeling that the connection is better, because it is a more solid connection essentially. But it's funny because essentially when you put it in side to side, you would expect it maybe to perform better because you have a shorter path going through the pickle. But it seems like the pickle itself is actually not really the biggest problem here. The pickle has pretty good properties in terms of audio propagation. Well, mind you, this is of course only sending line level signals and so on. So this is not like a huge amount of power that we're sending through the pickle. Well, actually it's hardly any power at all. But I think it would also be really, really interesting to see like how much power the pickle could handle. So in terms of connecting it, for example, to a power amplifier and then put a speaker in between. But I think that might be an experiment for another time. For now, I think we stay with the line level performance here. Okay, I think we already saw like a lot in terms of the distortion here. Maybe I just go a little bit deeper in frequency just to see what happens. I think this is kind of interesting. So at low frequencies, you have more distortion apparently. So it seems like that the distortion itself is rising towards the lower frequencies. Let me try 30 Hertz and see what happens here. Okay, that's kind of interesting because at 30 Hertz you actually already, you're at like minus 60 dB in terms of distortion performance. That's actually not too great, so I wouldn't really say that you can hear this. I think minus 60 dB at like 30 Hertz or so is still pretty low. But this, I think, is at the border of like of audibility. So technically you could start to hear this. And there's like a minute roll off here, which let's do pickle end to end. So let's save that trace here. I don't know if we have the time and we want to, we can also test or sweep the distortion or anything a little later. But I think that's it for now. And in terms of the pickle, I'm not sure. Does anybody else want to test anything specifically about the pickle? Let me know in the chat right now, then I can have a look if I can test it here. Otherwise I would move on because we also have an Apple waiting. So here we have the Apple, which is next in line. Already put it here. So we can have a look how that works out. I have the feeling that, so if I had to guess, I would say that the Apple probably works better. So coming from the carrots, knowing that the carrots are just a bit more firmer and you can push it in better. So this is really probably a better connection towards the Apple, but I'm not sure how exactly the Apple will propagate the audio, but I guess we will see in a second. All right, let's just continue here. I think we can go back to the pickle anytime. We have slaughtered it already quite a lot. All right, let me get that out of the way. It's also quite funny having a random pickle laying on the table here. And yeah, I think without further ado, we'll just jam it into the Apple here. So I'll go from left and right. That's actually okay. Yeah, I mean, the right side holds up a bit better than the left side. But I think there's already quite a bit of distortion visible. I'm not sure if the ground plane is touching here. Let me just check. No, actually not. I think this is distortion purely from the Apple. Well, let me go to 1 kilohertz. And then let's see. Okay, that's super interesting. I did not expect that, to be honest. As you can see with the RMS level, we dropped to like 200 millivolts. So this is like, essentially when I go to here, like 20 decibels in terms of, although what's the reference level here? Okay, yeah, 2 volts. 20 decibels in terms of the signal level. So yeah, I think the Apple is actually not as good as a carrot or like a pickle, essentially, in terms of like at least signal level. But let's take that and put that into here and just run the sweep. I mean, the Apple also has like it's a lot of like space, right? You have to go from left to right. It's a pretty big area. What we can try next is putting the plugs right next to each other, so that the path through the Apple itself is not so big, essentially. But let's see if that helps any. Actually, let me check. I'm not quite sure where we are here. Frequency. Oh, okay. Okay, this is also quite interesting and unexpected. I'm not sure the frequency is now going. It's completely dropping. Then rising again? What? What's that? That was like a perfect V curve. Let me save that. That is actually super weird. That's not what I would have expected. Let's take another color then. Blue. Look at this. What is happening? Look at the green line when I turn off the... It's like... So here in like, what is this? Turquoise or something? This is the Pickle, like end to end. And then in green you have the Apple, and the Apple is just complete V curve. I'm not sure. This is like some people EQ their microphones. Pretty crazy. I don't know what's going on. Maybe somebody in the chat has any explanation. This is super interesting. I would have not expected that. I mean, I can understand like the frequency response going down, or I don't know, rising throughout and everything, but like a proper V curve? I'm not even sure how this is happening. So I think, I mean, probably has to do something with with capacitance and so on. Of course, and varying impedance here of the Apple, but I just would not have expected it to vary this much over the frequency range, and also to have such a pronounced V curve. Pretty interesting. It's also pretty funny that the lowest point is pretty much exactly at 1 kilohertz. Like, how does an Apple know that it has the lowest point at 1 kilohertz? I mean, it's probably complete random, but still, it's super weird. Now I'm asking myself if I should take another Apple. I mean, have a second one and test it if it has like the same response or if it's different. I think I'll get a second Apple so we have a have something to compare. I'll be back in just a second. All right, apple number 2. So let's swap that out here. And I think I might clean that off. Otherwise the RCA plugs get so sticky. So let's see. So second apple. And I'll give you a close-up here. Okay, poked in on the right side first. Alright, let's pull it a bit. Let's pull it out a bit so it does not contact the outer shell. I think that looks good. Proper audiophile apple. And let's sweep that again, right? Shall we? Actually, also interesting to see at the top, we have like 150 millivolts now, so this one has even more attenuation than the other apple. But let's hit go and see where we land. Actually, that's pretty close. That's actually even closer than I would have expected. These are like two completely different apples. Maybe not completely different. I think they're the same kind, but just like not even like a quarter dB difference. Bite one. Maybe you think that affects the frequency response? Maybe we cut something off or something. That's very weird. Okay, we'll. Okay, noted. We just put it down. Apple 2. Okay. Very interesting performance here of the apple. But now the question is also, let's have a quick look at distortion. And let's turn that other stuff off. All right. So I think at 1 kilohertz it's not too bad. Probably THD drops a bit because the sound, the signal level drops so low. So the noise floor becomes more apparent. But distortion is also not so great with like minus 60 dB. But I think when I go to like 50 hertz, we already saw that the apple struggles quite a bit. And here you can see, I mean, this is like minus 40 decibels of distortion. This is probably quite apparent. Okay, now the real question is, how does audio through the apple sound like? Actually, I think I have to do a test at some point and upload like a file, because sadly I can't test it right now. I don't have the setup here for to run audio through the apple. But I mean, look at the frequency response. You have like the V shape, and you have like this huge amount of distortion. Maybe call it saturation. So I think maybe this is a replacement for, I don't know, a guitar pedal or something. Quite funny. Would be really interesting to hear stuff running through an apple. That's super interesting. I don't know. I would have not thought that it looks like this. Yeah, the apple fuzz. So let's see if we can make a a sound pad out of this or so. That is I don't know. I'm a bit blown away. Can an Apple replace a cloud lifter? I don't know. If you want to have negative gain, then yes, maybe. I don't know. But if you want to have positive gain, I think you're in bad luck with an Apple. I'm not sure if it can be used as an amplifier. I think that's asking a bit too much from it. But let's see. Okay, let's quickly go back to 1 kilohertz again, and I'll turn on the response so we have something to see. And what I'm planning to do now is to put the other plug closer to the other one. So I'll just pull it out here. And let me turn this around. Let's put it just right beside it without touching internally. All right. I think that looks good. So well, it's kind of touching the... Okay, I think now it's better. Perfectly balanced. And no, this is not balanced audio, this is unbalanced. And that's an unbalanced Apple. But still, let me copy this, go in here, and I would say run the sweep. Okay, interesting. I think we still have the same V shape, but it is less pronounced. Let's see how much it rises towards the higher frequencies. Yeah, that would be super funny to have a VST plugin with different fruits and apples and things to play with. So now I'm really curious to test the banana, but I don't have a banana here. That's pretty unfortunate. Okay. Interesting. So yeah, I think what's really interesting is that in terms of like the total, I mean, you can see at the top the RMS is like 250 millivolts, and I think before it was like 200 for the Apple end-to-end. So it's actually not too different in terms of the attenuation, whether you have the signal just next to each other connected to the Apple, or if you run it completely through the Apple. So yeah, that's also interesting to see. So that doesn't make such a big difference. I think it was the same with the Pickle itself, and actually with Carrot also. If you just let it travel through much more Carrot, it was not a huge difference in terms of like signal loss and so on. Yeah, a blind test would be pretty cool. I think somebody here wrote. So maybe I have to upload the audio files, some audio samples running through different stuff, and then everybody can guess what it was. If it was an Apple, a Pickle, or something. I think that would be pretty good. So banana has some shielding because of its shell. Might solve some phone interference. Yeah, I think that we have to test that. We have to put a phone next to the banana and run some sweeps. Okay, but for now, I think I'm done here with the Apple. So this is, let's save that Apple, close. Yeah, interestingly, not much difference between running it like end to end or however. The only thing I want to do quickly is just go down to like all the way 20 Hertz. And I mean, this is pretty crazy. If you look at this, you have essentially like minus 35 dB of distortion. So this is still, I mean, this is very low frequency, right? So this is not like plainly obvious, but Still, this is definitely a territory where you will start to hear distortions. So very interesting. So I think I will close out here with the Apple. But all in all, yeah, in terms of audio adapter, I'm not sure if I would give it a good rating here. I mean, the RCA plugs are kind of loose. I think the Carrot still wins out like by a mile in terms of the usability. It's pretty funny because when I initially did the testing with the Carrot, I mean, I had no comparison to other vegetables or fruits or anything, and I just pushed it in and it worked pretty well. And I didn't think about like other stuff holding the RCA plugs as well as a Carrot does. And actually the Carrot really grabs onto the RCA plugs, and the Carrot so far really seems to be like the best of all worlds in terms of audio adapter, because it really grabs the RCA plug and the audio transmission is also pretty good. So I think it's a very good compromise between like usability and audio quality, which is a pretty funny thing to say about a Carrot adapter, but that's apparently how it is. And yeah, an Apple is worse in that aspect, much worse. So if you run audio through an Apple, you will get a V-shaped response, and for some reason very interesting audio and distortions. And yeah, I absolutely will run audio through this and listen to this at some point, and I'll have a look if I can share that. That would be really funny, because this really sounds like heavily shaped audio. Okay, I think the Apple is done for now. Let's clean that off here. So let's put that to the side. Right. Let me have a look. Okay, so watermelon is also suggested. Fresh cucumber. Sadly, I don't have the stuff here, so I might have to buy it eventually. Potato might also be an idea, but I don't have it. I just have like something a little bit boring, but I still want to try it out. And that's just a glass of water. So, and I'm just now noticing that we are going to have a problem with doing this, because I mean, you cannot plug the RCA plug into the water itself. So I'm not sure how exactly we're going to do this. Let me grab some. I think that can work. Okay, maybe let me show you what I'm doing. So I have just these alligator clips here, and I'm just clipping them to the front of the RCA plug, and then I will just simply plug this in. And I think it's not touching the water yet, so I'll have to fill it up a bit. Is that better? I'm not so sure. I have no idea how I get the glass from my table again with this much water in it, but let's let that be a problem for later. Okay, other plug here. All right, not sure if we can push that in here. Perfect. That is yeah, brought to you by IKEA. Hashtag not sponsored. And that's how you transfer 32-bit float. Maybe. eventually. We will find it out. So let me go back to this setup here. And I mean, we can already see some signal. Am I right, or am I? Let me just kill it again and see what happens. Just a sanity check. Okay, you can see signal drops completely, so there's nothing going on. If we connect this, then we have our signal back again. Okay, so this kind of works. What is also surprising now, if you look at it, this is kind of the same amount of distortion as with the Apple. So I'm not sure if we get a similar response now. So let's sweep that. No, actually already I can tell you it's going to look a little different, but still, let's run this. And okay, I mean, we kind of get a similar response. We have some kind of a... Or do we have a V-shape? I'm not sure if it even goes up at the end. Actually, it does not. Yeah, good question. It's actually tap water, yeah. Just normal, fresh mountain water. And so, water. Also super interesting. I mean, look at this. Now we have some, essentially, yeah, just like a boost in the lower frequencies, and then it just slightly tapers off towards the highs. Let me turn off this curve here so you can see a little bit better. I'm not sure exactly which color this is. It's like a green or something. Going downhill here. So bass boost water, yeah, exactly. Again, completely different. I would have not expected that. That's super interesting. I'm not sure why water does it exactly how it does it, but that's how it goes. Yeah, triple filtered hi-fi water. So that's why it's so expensive. Now, I think before continuing here, let me quickly also check the distortions. And then I thought I have some salt here, so we might want to just throw in some salt and see what happens. I mean, obviously we expect the frequency response to rise and maybe to even be even flatter because of the salt in the water, but I cannot be so sure because to be honest, at this point I'm not like, I mean, I wouldn't have expected the Apple being like it is. So let's go with the distortions here first. All right, so what we can see is, I mean, minus 60 dB is also nothing to write home about. This is definitely in the audible range. I mean, this is this amount of distortion you can hear. And let me check if I can somehow change the frequency. I'm not sure what I'm doing here. Let's go down to 50. And yeah, I mean, like minus 40, minus 35 dB around there in terms of distortion. This is already quite high distortion again. So now I'm not entirely sure where the distortion is coming from. Maybe just for a quick sanity check, I will grab the prongs here and just completely short them together. And we can see that there is, okay, some amount of distortion here, which I have the feeling is from these very cheap connectors. So we are definitely limited. Let me adjust the scale. Yeah, well, it's not too perfect. I think the cables are also a bit non-ideal, but yeah. Yeah, I could touch the RCA tips together, but this is not exactly how it works in the setup, right? I just want to have a quick sanity check, essentially. Let me just run a sweep with this connected like this. Just let me see if that is flat or if that already has some kind of a change to it. Then, because the change might not even come from the water, it might come from the cables being, well, just not so great cables, let's put it that way. But it's a bit crowded here in the display, but I think you can see that the cables, even though not being ideal, they are very close to flat. So I think the cable is not the limiting factor here. Okay, let's put it back into the water. Down it goes. And let's turn that back on again here. Okay, yeah, you can see that it's quite a huge amount of distortion with the water itself. Now, as mentioned, I have some salt laying around here. And I think this is also pretty interesting to see in real time. So let's just go to 1K. And I'm going to update the... take a few lower points so you have a faster update time. And then just take one... Okay. And so what I would expect now is that we have... I mean, some signal drop, as you can see here. So we drop from like, yeah, the 2 volts down to like 300 millivolts. And I would expect when we throw some salt into the water that we are having a lower signal drop so that the signal will essentially rise up. And hopefully you can see that. So I will throw in the salt and then maybe we see the signal rise. I'm not sure. Let me get some salt on my hand here. This is like science pure. But the big question is now, does it even dilute? I mean, we're still at, you can see the number at the top, right? It says 377 millivolts. Let me just throw in a bunch of salt. Without getting too much here on my keyboard. I think I have to get a spoon or something. But I have the feeling it's slightly rising, right? We already are at 380. Don't forget the pepper, yeah. Like perfectly seasoned water. Okay, I think that's it. I can't put any more in without making a huge mess here. So let me put that to the side. Nothing like salty audio water. Exactly. So let's put that over here. And I mean, it is slowly rising, right? We're already at 400 and we started out at like 370 or something. But now I need something to stir it. Maybe take some tweezers here. This is not really properly planned. Is it going up? Oh wow, that's crazy. I mean, we're already at 1 volt. That's like a huge change. Okay, so if we stir a little more. Okay, I'm just spilling the water now. I mean, this is as expected, right? But it's still pretty cool to see. I mean, I'm not sure why I'm so excited about this, but it's just pretty cool seeing the signal rise so much by just a little bit of salt in the water. Yeah, the rest here is very tricky to dilute, but let's leave it at that. And then probably now my tweezers will rust, but we're doing it for science here. Good. Now we're at 1.32 volts, so I think the signal rose quite a bit. Pretty cool. And but I think the distortion is not that much lower, right? If you have a look at it, it's like minus 60 still. So distortion performance could be better. So it's not really audiophile grade water yet. Maybe I have to put more salt in it. I don't know. But let's run a sweep just out of curiosity. And now it does something completely different? What? It's now the complete opposite? Now it starts low and goes high? What is this? Okay, that's... I mean, at this point I shouldn't be surprised because everything could be happening here, but that's pretty interesting. That's very interesting behavior. And yeah, I would not have expected that if I hadn't tested it myself. So let's put this salt water. Very funny. So if you have a look at this, I'll just exclude the apples. You can see first it was like bass boost water, just going down, and now it's like fresh treble water. I'm not sure how you want to call it. Salty mix for sure, definitely. Yeah, it sounds quite a bit aggressive, essentially. All right. Let's have a look. I'm still debating if I should put some more salt in it. I mean, we have more salt, so there's nothing stopping us. I can give you even a close-up here. Let's see more salt. I think I should have done it like this beforehand. Oh, let's just go all in. But now we have to still stir it around a bit. Well, it's just slightly dripping off on the sides. I think this should be now something like, I don't know, 5% salt or something. And you can actually see that the signal is rising like quite a lot more. And sadly, the water is also getting all over my table, which I did not anticipate. Okay, we're at 1.6 volts. That is actually... that's pretty substantial. I mean... oh, I think I have to put something there. The water is escaping and ruining my connectors. Okay, we're good again. So now, I mean, let's have a look again. So what's interesting is that distortion levels have dropped quite a bit. So before, like with just a little bit of salt, distortion was still pretty high. And now it started to come down a bit. Let's go to like 50 Hertz again. Okay, we might want to set it up like this. And yeah, I mean, even in the lower frequencies, I think it was like around minus 40 decibels. So now we're pretty much down a little bit. Let's sweep that. And just mentioning here, I have normalized this to 1 kilohertz. So normally now the trace would sit a little bit higher than the previous trace because instead of like 1.3 volts, it was now at 1.6. And interestingly, so this still has this like rising shape to it, but overall it is like a very slight tad flatter. So I think the lower frequencies are a little bit higher and the high frequencies are a little bit lower. So the overall flatness has improved. So more salt, more better, apparently. All right. I think that's it with the water. Enough played around here and enough soaking of my table. Let me check how I can get this away without making a complete mess here. It's also super great having this full glass of water extremely close to my audio analyzer. It's such a good idea. Now salt the pickle. I think I mean, in the end we maybe might have like something, we find something that has like a ruler flat frequency response, some kind of a vegetable that you can, with which you can get a ruler flat frequency response. That would be really funny. Okay, just some more cleaning up here. Just have to turn this off 1 second. So I can wipe the table here without making you dizzy. Okay, I think we're good to go. Let me turn that back on and we can... The only question is, where do I put the water? Where I don't accidentally drink it later. Let me put it over here. Perfect. So would you say that vegetables are better than fruits for audio? I mean, we only have a small sample size here. I can't say this conclusively. I think so far, I mean, like from an audio perspective, the pickles worked out pretty well. The carrots also worked out really well. Actually, they also really worked in really nicely in grabbing the plugs. And I mean, the apple was not that great. The water also was not so great, except when you put some salt in it. But even then, there was quite a bit of distortion. So yeah, I think so far, vegetables is where it's at. Yeah. So now we have another candidate here, which is some fresh, I'm not sure what is it. I think it's marmalade, like jam, something. Somebody suggested this. I'm not sure who it was, but I thought it was super funny. And yeah, I wanted to try it, so here it goes. What also somebody suggested is if we can send like digital audio through like the jam itself. So something like what's it, like a spit of signal or something, which I'm not sure if we can test this here. I have to check if my setup allows this here right now. But that would also be really, really funny to see. Now let's see if we can do this without the small cable clips. But I have the feeling that, and yeah, probably this is going to be a bit messy here. Okay, no. It will completely sink in, so I think that's a bad idea. Let me clean that off a little, and then... not sure how I do this now. So you can see I'm not doing this so often, so apparently testing audiophile vegetables is not a full-time job for me. But let's see. Yeah, late night jam, correct. So, I mean, I just stick it in there, right? And it falls right over. Like this, maybe? And then the other one on the other side. That's gonna be a pain to clean up later, but I had to try it. I just had to. So let's see. Yeah, 700 millivolts. It's actually not too bad. So I mean, there's some attenuation here. Let's go to and of course also some distortion. Let's go to like 1 kilohertz. Yeah, also some distortion around like -60. Actually a bit more because I haven't fully... Yeah, you can see it's like -55 or something. Okay, and yeah, but still. Let's just run it. Okay, so starts out not too bad. I mean, low frequencies are slightly boosted, but 1 dB is like, this is hardly audible. And then it's pretty flat in the mid-range. Only question is if it does anything at the higher frequencies or if it just stays flat. And it just slightly tapers off towards the high frequencies, but yeah, this is just, I don't know, half a dB down or so. So this is really not that much. So I think in terms of like, let me put the other stuff away. So this is jam. And if you can have a look at the, do we have this a bit brighter or something? I don't know, let's turn it green again. So you can see it better. I mean, it starts out here and then it has a very slight rise towards the mid frequencies and then goes a bit down again. But I think this is pretty flat. Does smooth versus chunky make a difference? I think that's the next question. I'm not sure. I have to check. So this is, I think, smooth. There are no bigger chunks in there, as far as I'm aware. So I would have to try the other one, but I think this is, yeah, I mean, frequency response-wise is pretty good. Distortion-wise, we can see it's not so perfect. And let's also quickly have a look at like 50 Hertz or so. And yeah, it also rises again. So, so I think you can really... Yeah, if you would run audio through this, you would actually not hear too much of a change in terms of the frequency response, but you might hear some added distortion or saturation in the lower frequencies. So that's pretty funny. So you can really jam on jam essentially. Yeah, somebody wrote warm tone. Exactly. I think this. I would say that if you run audio through this, it probably in the first second it is not a huge difference, but definitely has like some amount of like grudge, or how you want to express it in the lower frequency range. It's pretty funny. I think that's actually really interesting because you essentially, I mean, with the stuff that we already tested today, we have like really different frequency curves, different distortion profiles, and so on. I'm not sure. I think I would have to test a bit more and so on, but it would be super funny to have this as a VST or something. I'm not sure if you can have jam as a VST, but that would be the way to go. What about testing yourself? Is the human body conductive? I would assume so, but the question is if I want to stick the RCA plugs, I don't know, into my muscles or something. This is probably not the way to go. And I think just holding it in the hand, I think the resistance of your skin is way too high to do any proper testing here. But that would be interesting if you can send audio through humans. I mean, with high enough voltage, you probably could, right? But then clip them to your ears. Exactly, so you clip them left and right. But I mean, do I pull it out again now? I'm not sure. I think even if I clip it to my finger or so, it's just way too much resistance. There's no way that there's any proper signal going through there. Okay, so I think we're finished with the jam. Looking at the time, I only have one last thing which I want to test, and then maybe we can do some questions and I don't know if you still want. So I will still be here for a couple of minutes, and if you have some general questions, you can just shoot. So let's see if I can clean up this mess here. Okay, I probably should have removed the protective cover from the alligator clips, because now I've probably jammed under the protective cover, which is really not that nice. But, well. Alright. Let's put that away. And let's open that up here. Last thing for today. We have hot salsa sauce. Because I just had it here and I had to try it out. And yeah, I think just in it goes. I think I have to put it in a bit deeper because it otherwise falls out. It's a bit more viscous. All right, 1.3 volts. Let's quickly go to like 1 kilohertz. 1.6 even, that's actually not too bad. And just run a trace here. So for comparison, your tongue is about 10 kilo ohms. Yeah, might be the case. I'm not sure. I haven't tested it. But I think if you would clip the alligator clips, like one side to the left and one side to the right of your tongue, then you probably could get some connection, but it's probably also a bit painful, so not something I would want to try out right now. All right, and we have like a completely opposite curve again, like starting low with 2 decibels less than like reference, and then going slightly up and then being pretty flat in the high frequencies. I think now I'm asking what does it look like in the ultrasonics, but I'm not sure if we want to go there. This is already getting out of hand way too fast here. So let's save this as hot salsa sauce. And maybe do a different color. I don't know, purple or something. Yeah, not too crazy of a response. I mean, definitely not like the apple or something, but totally fine. Distortion wise, I think we're also looking pretty decent. I mean, we're at like minus 70, somewhere around there, which is also pretty good. And yeah, I think just going down to 50 Hertz. Let's see how the distortion looks like. Yeah, some distortion. I mean, minus 40 around there, minus 55, but not too shabby. So salsa sauce is okay, I would say. Not the best. Definitely like has some change in frequency response and some distortion. Yeah, so I don't know. Not the best solution here if you need an audio adapter or something. Especially, I mean, if you only have RCAs which you want to connect there, you can't just dunk them in because then you would otherwise, again, short the signal and the ground. So that's not, yeah, so great, I think. Let me check. So yeah, I'm not sure if you have any suggestions for the hot salsa sauce, what you could do differently. Actually, I do have one more thing in mind. Just grabbing one and just putting it right next to the other one. Hopefully not touching, like this. And let's go to 1 kilohertz again, and we shall have a look. So signal increased, but again, just a little bit, which is really interesting. Distortion, I think, is also the same, around minus 70. So, and frequency response like completely lines up. This is super interesting. I mean, I would expect that when you run it through more salsa sauce, right, that things start to change more. But apparently, like, just having a little bit of salsa sauce in between already does the same as if you have more salsa sauce in between. Well, now I'm starting to ask the question, like, would it be the same if you have like a 1 meter long salsa sauce line, essentially? I'm not sure. Does it make any sense? Does it measure the same? Well, since it does not make any, but would the signal still be okay? It's very, very, very strange. So my feeling actually is that with the salsa sauce is actually more about maybe the connection of the plug itself here, which is plugged into the salsa sauce, than the salsa sauce itself. Yeah, and the salsa sauce probably itself has quite a good quite low resistance essentially, but that's pretty interesting. I thought that like the amount of salsa in between the plugs would make a bigger difference, but apparently it does not. So again, what learned, as the Germans would say. Right. Looking at the time, I think I'm through with my weird experiments. Yeah, that's pretty much all I had for now. It was pretty funny. I don't know, maybe if we have something else lying around. I'm looking still if I have something which I can try, but so far nothing else. I'm not sure if anybody has still any questions. Any general ones or something, you can still just shout them out and I can answer them here. And then I think, yeah, I'll be here just a couple minutes longer, and then eventually I will leave this here. I mean, with the year already coming to an end, I think it was a funny last experience. And yeah, as mentioned, I think this is it's becoming a bit of a tradition, right? So I think actually the year before I also streamed, and the year before that I also had another stream. So I think this is now year 3 in a row, which is great to see, and always great to see so many people in here. Some naughty bits for asking the true questions, but I'm not sure if I want to be the one testing them. So audiophile food, yeah. I think eventually we have to test a bit more, and I think that's the way to go, right? To have an audiophile food VST plugin or something. I think the Apple is actually most interesting as a VST effect, because this would probably, not only probably, it will definitely change the audio in an audible way, and I think that's very funny. How about rollmops? Yeah, that would be also pretty interesting. Sadly, I don't have rollmops here, so that's not something I can test right now. Maybe eventually when I get my hands on some. What are the chances of me testing the 13-year-old sound device's USB Pre 2 to today's interfaces? To be quite honest, not that high. I think I tested some sound devices stuff in the past, like the Mix Pre 3 and so on. I didn't fully deep dive back then as much into the technical performance as I do now, but I still had some measurements there as well. But yeah, I think it's quite tricky also for the sound devices like the USB Pre 2. For example, for me to get my hands on this stuff, it's not so easy. And I think there are also not that many people interested in the older equipment, so that's always a bit of a downside to that. I mean, if I have it laying around or so somewhere, and I might get my hands on it, I might test it, but don't hold your breath, if I'm honest. Does fast food make the sound more fat? That's a very good question. I think now that you say it, we have to try like a burger or something. So audiophile Big Mac or something. Have you ever done any signal integrity eye diagrams? No, not that I can remember. Probably the only part where you would need this is in terms of clocking and stuff. And I have actually done a video on jitter, where obviously clocking plays a huge role in jitter. And but there I have shown that like many modern devices usually like don't have a problem with jitter at all. They are so great nowadays. So I'm not too sure if any of those like integrity diagrams also would really make any sense. I mean, of course you could measure the clocks or so in your audio interface or something, but I don't think there's much value getting out of it. Want to share what are the plans for the coming year for the channel? It's a good question, actually. I also thought about it as well. Very likely there will be a few more audio interface reviews. Who would have thought? But I'm also checking currently if there are ways of testing some other stuff. I'm not quite sure yet what exactly it will be. Very likely it's going to be still audio related stuff. So I might want to have a look more also to into hi-fi things. Maybe also headphones I think would be pretty cool, but measuring them is always a bit challenging. So I think this is definitely a thing I have to figure out yet. But if I have, then this would be also something I would be really interested in doing. So let's see if I can make that happen. Essentially plans are for the next year still some more reviews, and I also want to have a bit more focus on tutorials again. I think in this year I did quite a lot of review stuff, but I also noticed that it's always cool when I do something and I learn something to share this information with other people. And so I also want to have a look into doing some more like informative review, not only review stuff, but some more also tutorial things. Maybe also some more like explain videos. Do cloud lifter heads make more difference when caramelized? That's a very good question. I cannot answer yet, but we will have to test, I guess. So it's actually a very good question. I'm not sure if you would put caramel inside. I know the question isn't serious, but now I'm thinking like, what would happen if you put caramel inside a cloud lifter? So does that make any audible difference? Probably not, but interesting to think about. Is there a chance of you including Wasapi shared mode latency measurements in your review? For example, using the superpowered browser test. I have to confess, I've never heard of this test. I might want to look it up. I've also thought, generally speaking, about diving a bit deeper into latency testing and so on, but it's really a difficult topic. And I think I say this, I've been asked this like a few times now, and every time my answer to this is a difficult topic, and simply because it is so different, so tricky to get precise measurements, because sometimes you test something with in terms of latency and so on, and then you just restart your PC, and the next time you have just all of a sudden different latency measurements again, because software nowadays gets so good in terms of like optimizing latencies and so on, and they have also some dynamic stuff going on in the background, that it's really difficult to get like one specific measurement. I mean, round trip latencies, they are very consistent, but going deeper into, which buffer size, for example, would you choose in which situation? How many tracks can you run with a certain buffer size and so on? This gets very, very complicated very fast, and that's why I haven't really gotten to a conclusion yet, to be honest. I've done lots of hours actually already into testing, trying to come up with a testing methodology, but there's just no way I have found to do proper and consistent latency measurement testing. So I can't say, to be honest, if I can give you any results there, because so far I've not yet found any way. Maybe this the browser test that you showed maybe makes any sense. I will look it up, and if that does make any sense, then I will have a look and might include it in the future. Any chance testing something like podcasting mixers as audio interfaces? I think there has been some interest in, I think was it like exactly, somebody wrote here, the Yamaha AG Mark II or something. It has been on my list, but also I think it is a bit more pricey, and so far I've not yet had the money to buy it. So, but yeah, definitely not completely out of the world that I will have a look at this. Yeah, exactly. Somebody also writes here with latency and versus CPU consumption testing. It's really quite challenging, because again, you might have like some programs open which also influence your measurement, but then on the next time you just restart the PC, and then maybe one program is not open anymore, and then all of a sudden latency already changes. So it's really, really tricky to do this in a stable environment. Right, just stopped the tone because I was hearing the 1K beep in the background the whole time. All right, let me check what else we have. Yeah, although, Cozy, you write that headphone reviews, it's difficult to find legitimate objective headphone reviews. I think there are quite a few out there which do headphone reviews, right? And I think also they do pretty good measurements now. I think the real challenge is with headphones that the big question is still out there: how do you interpret the measurements? And there's still lots of essentially research going into this field, finding out how exactly. Let me go to full screen here. Otherwise, you're still staring at the software for the whole time. There's still the point in figuring out exactly what is exactly like the quotation mark best curve. Well, arguably there's no best curve out there, but what is like a curve to aim for? How can you build headphones that have a certain sound? I think there's a lot of, like, even if you just measure the headphones, I mean, some are just plainly bad. This is very easy to find out, but for the ones that get better and better, it gets very challenging to just from the measurement to see which is the better headphone. Essentially, this is getting very challenging. So interesting field. Does some vegetables reduce DC? Well, I mean, it kind of does reduce because simply it has some resistance to it, right? And if you put it into like inline, essentially, you already have like a small amount of reduction in signal. But apparently, as we can see from the frequency response, it also reduces AC. So it's not only a DC part here. But yes, it does reduce DC. All right. QB, you're writing, we've done some rudimentary testings using that test. If you'd like to see some results, we have done. Yeah, I mean, if you have a link or something, you can just share it. I'm not sure if the auto admin or something here from Google will let the link through, but you can try, and I will probably see the link anyways. And we'll have a look. What sort of transducer should we use to play a dragonfly? That's a very tricky question. I'm not exactly sure if I can answer that. Could you tell more about using SDC cardioids versus super versus hypercardioids for indoor dialogue in treated and untreated rooms? I can only tell you what I have from my experience, and that's actually that the difference between like a supercardioid and a cardioid is actually not that big. Like some people would think that it is like a huge difference, and sometimes it's said that it is a huge difference. But if you look at the polar diagrams, like the rejection from the sides is actually like not really that much more for like super or hypercardioids mostly. And also in like the diffuse field, I think overall the supercardioid is just like, I don't know, I think Schups has a very nice diagram of that. It's just like a dB or so lower rejection of diffuse field sound or something like this, which is really not that much. So I think the biggest difference between cardioid and supercardioid is where you have your lobes, right, in terms of the rejection. So for a cardioid, you want to put the most insensitive part, so essentially the backside, towards the noise source. And with super and hypercardioids, it's not the back, but it's just slightly off angle, which I think is sometimes a bit more useful. For example, if you have a mic right here, you can angle it a little bit so that it's just a little bit off to the side to something which is noisy or so. And arguably, if you have a noise source, for example, a keyboard right below the microphone, it's attenuated a little bit more. But I would argue that between cardioids and hypercardioids, the difference is actually not so big. But yeah, and I think one of the reasons, or the bigger reasons, why supercardioids or small diaphragm condensers are used indoors mainly. This is one of the arguments with people booming with those microphones and using this for movies and so, is simply because of the neutrality, right? They tend to have like a very even fall off. So if you go to the side, the whole frequency response range is attenuated essentially evenly. This is often not the case with like large diaphragm condenser microphones, or if you have, for example, shotgun microphones, because these microphones with the interference tube, the frequency response around the microphone heavily changes. So for example, sound that comes from the side with a shotgun microphone will sound significantly more muffled because it has much less high frequencies. And I think one of the main reasons that people like to use the small diaphragm condensers is if you have them in the room, it just sounds pretty normal, I would say. And this, and it doesn't even matter if you have a treated or untreated room, like it will just sound like it sounds in the room, essentially. But one could argue that sometimes in an untreated room, you might even want to have like a little bit more rejection. So like a large diaphragm condenser could, reject high frequencies from the side a bit more. Yes, it will sound technically a bit more unnatural, if you can even hear that, but you have a bit less reverb in the room, essentially. So I think at the end of the day, it's really a preference thing. I also use a small diaphragm condenser just because I like the neutrality. I think it sounds, when I record with it, pretty much like my own voice. I don't like heavily compressed or like heavily EQ'd sound, essentially. And that's why I've also specifically chosen a small diaphragm condenser which has a flat frequency response. Which audio analyzer do you use for your reviews? Audio Precision. No Audio Precision. I've been using a D-scope. I'm just looking at it, but it says Prism Sound, but that's the old name. I think they're called Spectral Sound or something, or Spectral Measurements, I think. Now they changed their name. So I think Spectral Measurements is the thing that you need to look for, and it's a D-scope M1. That's the audio analyzer that I use. If you're interested, I also made a whole review, or actually a whole video about that. So if you search that on my channel, you can find a whole video where I go into the features of that thing. I mean, I've bought it quite some time ago now. It has been a trusty companion for me, has done lots of testing. It's not at the performance level of an Audio Precision, but it's also like cost-wise much lower. So I think that is quite beneficial. On different PC, RTL will be different. No. So from what I have tested so far, and I've done this also in the beginning when I started testing round trip latency, actually with different PCs and still the same settings on the interface, the round trip latency will be the same. So in that aspect, it's consistent. But I think what can slightly change is still at the same, let's say, buffer size, you might be able to run different amounts of like audio processing until really it starts crackling and so on. This is still something that I need to analyze a bit more. But yeah, if you have the same buffer size set on the interface and the same sample rate, doesn't matter which PC you have, the round trip latency is the same. How about renting a device to test if it's a bit pricey? Yeah, it's definitely an option. I think also if I'm looking at headphone measurements again, this can get pricey very fast. Might be something to look into. I'm usually a fan of like owning my measurement equipment because I mean, I not only would have to have the test device with me here, but also if I wanted to test, for example, headphones or multiple headphones, I would have to have them all at this time when I rented the device. And I'm not sure if I have hundreds of headphones all of a sudden there to test, essentially. So yeah, I'm still figuring this out. Would be really interesting, but yeah, I don't have a proper solution yet. What's the USB interface with the lowest latency? What is the future about it? Can we decrease latency even further in the near future? So the lowest latency I have measured with round trip latency is the RME baby phase so far. I think generally the RME interfaces have very low latencies, but I haven't measured other ones. So the baby phase was the lowest one that I've measured so far. And interestingly enough, I think the third generation of Scarlett interfaces was like on the second place. They are also super fast in just pure terms of latency. And the fourth generation actually was slightly higher latency, but I mean, we're still talking about like, I don't know, one has 3 milliseconds, the other one has 4. It's probably not a huge deal in the real world, but if you want to have like absolutely lowest latency, I think RME is probably where it's at. And to answer the question, can we go faster? I'm not, let's say 1000% sure here. I would have to dive a bit deeper also as well, but I think, if I recall correctly, we are limited anyways by the USB interface. That's the problem here. If you would go with something else, I'm not sure. I think Thunderbolt was actually known for this. But with USB, of course, you always have packets that are being sent. And you have the whole how USB essentially works. And there is a limit to how fast you can go, essentially. So I think there's actually, I think the RME interface is already pushing, I think the round trip latency limit here. So I don't think actually we will go much faster in the future, at least not with USB. Maybe, I don't know, there's some other connection type or so which can do that. But the question is also like, I think with like a baby phase, you can achieve round trip latencies around like 3 milliseconds or so. And the question is already, do you really need anything faster? Will you really be able to perceive that? I'm not so sure about this. Megacardioid, when? I'm not sure. Sounds like I don't know, like a transformer or something. Like so, megacardioid rollout. So what else we have? Are you involved in audio for film or music, and what extent each? To be honest, I'm not really involved in either of those in like from a like working perspective. I work in IT, but audio is like the biggest hobby of mine, and the huge part how I spend my life essentially. I'm a huge audiophile. I like to listen to good music. I like to I like hi-fi. I like recording audio. I like recording like audio, sound effects essentially. That's just what I like. So essentially, this is how I got into the whole topic like years ago, and this is how I started, because when I looked at what were the best audio recorders and so on, I noticed that there was some information missing, like for example preamp noise. Nobody was telling me about which has better preamp noise, and that's when I started measuring it my own, and this is how I pretty much got into the whole topic here. Do a cooperation with Thomann. They should hook you up. and add your videos to the Ratgeberseiten. Funny thing, I think actually they have already taken a few of my videos and pasted them on the... So essentially, if you search for a product, sometimes I just randomly show up on the Thomann website, so that's pretty funny. Thanks for the job on this channel and Happy New Year. Yeah, thank you, and Happy New Year to you too. Actually, I was thinking about hiring or renting equipment to test using your current test equipment to lower the cost of getting items to test and review. Okay, yeah, I mean, that's also a way to go. Could you tell me specifically which microphone you use? I also use an SDC because it has more of a natural sound, and I think the cardioid is even better in this aspect, capturing more of the room sound. So I'm using a Schoeps CMC 641. This is actually I think it's a super or hyper cardioid. It's something used quite a bit in movie recording, and I've chosen the microphone specifically because it has like really good like flat frequency response. It's like incredibly flat, and also on the sides, like the fall off and so on is super flat. Do you hear this difference? I'm a bit, I don't know, cautious about this. I think you can probably get away with probably cheaper microphones and you're absolutely fine. But this was like a buy once, cry once investment where I said, okay, I'm recording YouTube videos. I'm doing it from time to time, and I just want to have a microphone. And actually, I bought it like now, I think 5 years ago or so. And since then, yeah, I've simply been using it, and it has been working flawlessly for me. So I think it was a worthwhile investment. Do you do any music mixing or audio post-production? Not so much. I have dabbled a bit in music production myself, but yeah, I would say this is more of a beginner hobby level, definitely not something crazy. Audio post-production, a bit more typically because when I create videos or so, I try to maximize the audio quality. So I've done quite a bit in terms of audio post-production. Also, I've worked on other projects where I had to like salvage some audio which was not recorded perfectly, and I had to make do with what I had. So yeah, I would argue that in terms of audio post-production I have some knowledge, but I'm not doing this full time. 8 kilohertz is currently being done on mics, while regular connections use 1 kilohertz. Not exactly sure what this is referring to, which kilohertz or what this is exactly about. The later USB standards include new modes for transmitting audio with low latency. Yeah, that might be really interesting to dive into in more details, but I think you're still restricted in terms of how you exactly send audio via USB. I mean, for example, compared to SPDIF or so, SPDIF is like a continuous stream of audio, but USB is, of course, like package based. So you always still have those smaller packages which will be sent one by one, and then it's all put together on the end again. And I mean, this always introduces some amount of latency. So I mean, with the SPDIF or something where you have like a continuous stream of audio, we really can't go any quicker than this, I would argue. But there are also downsides to transmitting audio this way. I mean, USB definitely has its absolute upsides. do you ever explore tweaking or modding devices and equipment? Actually, I have thought about this. One thing that came to mind was, I think on the Focusrite, the latest interfaces, the headphone amplifier has relatively high output impedance, and I already thought about like opening it up, and I mean there's a resistor in there which pushes up the output impedance deliberately. I mean that's a choice to limit the current, but I thought about maybe just simply removing it, or I don't know, or putting something in which is a bit lower impedance and having a look. Obviously this will completely void the warranty and very likely also destroy the device if you push it too hard into any limits there, but it would be really cool to see. So this might be something that might be in a future video. But otherwise, I think in terms of modding also, I think there's not so much use. Many manufacturers these days have gotten quite good into creating devices which work really, really well out of the box, and there's just no need to modify anything. Can you hear the difference between good and excellent ADs? This is a very good question, and I think some people will argue one way and some people will argue the other way. I would argue that in most cases you cannot. So at least, like, I mean, back in the days, probably converters were quite a bit less good, and then you could definitely hear differences. But converters have become so incredibly well designed these days. It's just incredible that like this, and if there are any sound differences, they've become so minute. But this is also something I want to test. So keep an eye out for that, because I want to do a proper A/B and blind comparison, and you will be able to hear some samples, and then you can decide for yourself if you hear a difference. But I can already say from my experience that I would have a hard time picking apart which interface something was the more expensive interface, or which interface it was recorded on. Using PCIe can reduce the latency if I insert it instead of GPU. You don't even have to insert it instead of your GPU. You usually, on your motherboard, depends on how big your tower is, you usually have like another PCIe Express slot free below your GPU. You can just put it below that. And it's a good question. I've never tested actually any PCIe Express cards, so I can't say for sure, but I have the feeling it could be faster than USB, but I don't have any data to support this. Gaming mice. Okay. I don't know. Did I read mics? I thought I read mics, not mice. Okay, yeah. So faster polling rate, but even there. So for example, for the buffer size, I think with smaller buffers you get slower and slower, but eventually you're at a very, very small package size, and you just can't go smaller. And even then, you still have to send, and you also have some overhead there. So I think there is still some limitation on USB where you just can't go slower. And actually, I think RME has a video about this, if I'm not mistaken. I have to have a look. You can search for RME USB audio or something. I think they have a video about that where they also go into this part of in terms of latency and explain that. Do you use a compressor on your vocal when recording your videos? Any DSP on your voice? Yes. So here in the live stream setup, I actually have a bit more of a, let's say, aggressive setup in terms of compressions and everything, simply because I just move around much more than I would in a normal video. I just try to keep the audio level constant and so on. So I have a bit more compression and stuff going on. If you want to know what I have going on for my normal videos, I have a video about that. So you can just, I think, search for like audio chain or something, or the voice post-production or so. And there I explain the exact settings that I use. But usually for the videos, I try to have like just a very, very small amount of compression just to keep very high peaks in check. But otherwise, I try to keep the audio pretty much as untouched as possible. That's just how I like to have the audio. If I send you a new Tascam FR-AV2, would you test it? I have to confess, I'm not even sure what the FR-AV2 is. I have to find that out. Sometimes it's a bit tricky to get stuff here. But if you like, you could send me a mail, which you can find on the YouTube in the info section, and I can have a look at it. Just want to pop in and say I appreciate your effort you put into your videos. Thank you very much. It's a great compliment. SPDIF is continuous and USB is package based. What about FireWire? Good question. I do not know. Actually, I think I've never really worked with any device that uses FireWire. No idea. We'll have to Google this as well. The worst audio interface I've ever owned was a PreSonus one many years back. Terrible performance, total lack of specifications. I think PreSonus has, I can't recall, I think I tested one of theirs, like the USB 96 or something. I can't recall the name exactly. This was also really not great. Actually, I think I sent it back and bought another one because I thought it was broken, but it was just this bad. But I have to confess, PreSonus actually did change quite a lot in terms of performance. So the newer interfaces and so on, in terms of tests, I think perform very well. And so I think they've gotten back on track essentially quite a lot. Thoughts on the Duet 3 Apogee? Seems to have a lot of preamp noise, but everyone praises their sound quality. It integrates well with Logic, but would a Babyface integrate just as well? Hard to say. I don't use Logic, so I can't tell you about this. I just think from my experience with the Babyface, like the drivers are pretty good. And it works very well. I'm not sure if there's any special integration of Apogee with Logic. And I also have to confess I haven't tested the Duet 3, so I can't also say anything about the performance. But I did test something else. What was it? Also an Apogee something. I can't really remember so many audio interfaces that I've tested now, but there was one from Apogee, and it also has an increased noise floor, if I remember correctly, in terms of preamp noise, which I also pointed out in that review. And Emmy is saying "Guten Rutsch." Yeah, you too. Also have a good slide into the new year. All right, USB has won the race because of hot plug support. Yeah, that's correct. I think USB is pretty much universal these days, although Thunderbolt is also making a kind of a comeback here. What would your comp settings be, for instance? Be today, for instance? I'm not sure if I can show you this. Let me check. I go to this screen here. Although I'm not sure if I open this now, if the settings are so, I might. Okay, now you've also gotten a close-up of the hot salsa sauce again. But yeah, if I open the settings, I'm not sure if then anything breaks here, so I'll have to leave it. Yeah, I mean, I just have a look at what I do in my normal videos, and then for this video here, I usually just lower the threshold a little bit and have a little bit more aggressive ratio. So usually I have just a very mild ratio of like 2:1 or something. And I think for the live streaming setup, I'm more around like 3 or 4:1. So there's a bit more compression going on. Fledermaus, thanks for another year. Thanks for the great videos. Have a good new year. Stay safe out there. Yeah, thank you very much. Same to you. Question, have you been using Reaper at all? Very easy answer. No, I have not. Lots of stuff that I've done is in Adobe Audition. I've done Audacity quite a lot. Also, like for music production, I've dabbled a bit in FL Studio, but Reaper I've not used pretty much at all. Best interface of 2024. Oh, this is a difficult one. How should I answer this now? I keep it vague and say it depends. I think it really depends because, of course, I mean, depends on what you need, right? Do you need multiple channels? Then you might need an interface with more channels. I don't know, there have been some coming out with high channel counts. So I think it's hard to say. I think one of the bigger surprises which I have, if I had to name one, I would say the SSL2 Mark II series. They, I think, have like really good performance, and I think in 2024 they have essentially surprised me the most. All right, audiophile graded hot sauce. Yeah, exactly. That's why it's so expensive. All right, I think we're slowly coming to a close here. Looking at the time, it's getting quite late here. Yeah, I think the questions are slowly stopping. And Dr. Wurzli, also much love to you and guten Rutsch for 2025. So I think nothing really more to say. 2024 is coming to an end. Once again, I want to say a huge thank you to all the support that I got over the years, and also in the last year here. Really cool to have also so many patrons around. So big thank you to all the Patreon supporter. I mean, this really means a lot to me. So thank you very much for your support in 2024. Of course, big thank you to everybody here in this stream supporting the channel. Thank you very much for being here. I think it's really cool having so many people watching the channel and just learning stuff together. I think audio is a very cool thing, and it's nice to be able to share this with all of you. So from my side, nothing more to add. I think 2024 here is coming to an end. Thank you again. Have really a good start into 2025, and I think I will see you soon. Then bye everybody.